Welcome to this week's edition of Good Books Radio. Audiobooks.com is the chief underwriter for Good Books Radio, which is produced by UTRGV Media Services for Rio Grande Valley Public Radio. And now, here's your host, Dr. W.F. Strong.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of Good Books Radio. I'm your host this week, Dr. W.F. Strong. Welcome to the program. We have a very interesting book today, but before I get to it, I want to, of course, thank our underwriter, audiobooks.com. They make this program possible, audiobooks.com, where your first book is free. Check them out. Now, we have some websites that I want to mention for you so that if you cannot listen to this program in its entirety right now, you can visit those later. We have a Facebook page, Good Books Radio on Facebook, where you can listen to this later as a podcast or pick up any of our programs over the past several years. Also, we have a YouTube channel, Good Books Radio, of course, and you can do the same there. You can pick up programs going back 5 or 6 years if you would like. And each week we upload a new program or program for the week there on our Facebook page and on the YouTube channel. Our book for today is called simply Careful, A User's Guide to Our Injury-Prone Minds by Steve Casner. Now, Steve Kastner, we're going to talk to in just a minute. He is a NASA research scientist, and as NASA has long been, of course, interested in safety and creating safer journeys for astronauts and creating a safer world for the rest of us. This is naturally an extension of that work where he wants to tell us how we can have safer lives in our everyday lives. Now, I want to share with you the introduction to this, quite interesting. He has an intro that I think we can all relate to, especially if you're, over about 40. He says, on the hottest days of a 1960s summer, I rode in the back of my grandfather's Chevy pickup truck. Out on the road, I leaned over the side and let the wind blast me in the face. I don't remember if there were any seat belts in the front seat of that truck, but even if it had them, I never saw grown-ups wear them. We ran around with plastic wrappers over our heads when somebody came home from the dry cleaners. We learned about pyrotechnics by experimenting with the ingredients in chemistry sets. I watched construction workers stroll across I-beams 40 stories above me, and I could tell that they were not being afraid of falling, and this made them cool in other people's eyes. There were seldom guardrails around anything. We had no fancy glass enclosures around fireplaces. We had kerosene-fueled space heaters that you could kick right over, and we sat in front of them on a cold winter's night wearing highly flammable clothes. We licked stamps, and if you had asked me then, I might have told you that whatever I was doing was perfectly safe. And if you had asked my grandfather, who was born in 1918, he might have agreed. So this is the way he begins to show us that we came from a world not so long ago where safety was not nearly on the front burner, so to speak, like it is today. And so he has written a book to focus on these and to demonstrate that a lot of the longevity of life is connected to our evolution of safety in everyday life. Now, this book is being widely praised. I always like to share what the publishing world has said or is saying about given books. Here we have a library journal that says that this is an overwhelmingly compelling case for safety, one of the most intelligent and impactful books. Everyone should read it. The Kirkus Review says that it is a sharp, concise review of the things that can kill us or harm us, how we contribute to the problem, and what we can do together to make us all safer. Although Kastner employs a gentle sense of humor, the book's greatest strength is the author's encouragement of compassion for others in everyday life. And here's Charles Duhigg, you know him. He wrote that wonderful book called The Power of Habit. And he says that Kastner convincingly argues that we all need to make a habit of being more careful. He's a scientist, a natural storyteller. He takes the study, the data, and safety advice we usually tune out and turns it into gripping, page-turning material. This is a how-to guide for a new way of thinking about survival in a world filled with hazards and distractions. So it's a book that will actually help you live longer. Here's essentially the thesis of this book. After 100 years of steady improvement, the rate at which people are being injured or worse in everyday accidents is increasing. As doctors and medical professionals work busily to extend our lives, more people each year are figuring out ways to cut them short. Car crashes, pedestrian fatalities, home improvement projects gone wrong, mistaken medical diagnoses, lost medical records, home fires, adventure sports, even cockroach eating contests. We're finding diverse and creative ways to do ourselves harm and even kill ourselves. So Steve Kastner is waiting for us on the phone, so let me begin our interview now. Welcome, Steve. How are you today?
I'm just great. Thanks for having me.
You know, I identified with you from page 1 here because you open your book talking about riding around in the back of a pickup as a kid. And I certainly did that, and I think anybody who's over maybe 50 probably had some experience in their past where they rode around in the back of pickups. And in fact, something I hear today with some frequency from older people is to say, well, you know, when I was a kid, we rode around in the back of pickups and we rode bicycles without helmets and without knee pads and rode skateboards without knee pads, and I'm still here. And of course, we don't have all the people who died to point to as the counter argument. But
Right.
but your book is essentially about this, that a lot of us survived just by the grace of God.
Yeah. Yeah. Luck is definitely a factor. And every time we do things like, run through a yellow or red light or cross the street when we shouldn't or in the wrong place, we're enjoying a measure of good luck there, for sure. But, it can run out.
Yes. Well, and we know people in our past, who did have luck run out. I remember a guy I worked hay with when I was a kid working on a farm, and I'd worked with him, for many years. And then right after we graduated from high school, he was working hay. I wasn't with him that day, but he was on a big pile of hay, and it had rained, and they were going under a power line, and he instinctively reached up and to move the line and killed him, just like that.
Oh,
And
boy.
these things, as you point out, happen, but they often don't have to if we would be a little smarter and wiser and more empathetic about other people, in the world. I did want to stop just a second to tell people about you. I like this little paragraph that says that Steve Casner is a research psychologist who studies the accident-prone mind, a NASA scientist by day. Kastner also flies jets and helicopters, rides motorcycles and skateboards, and has surprisingly few scratches on him. He lives in San Francisco with his wife and his daughter. So it's interesting that you live a kind of risky life, but you've written a book on being careful.
Yeah, some of these things aren't as risky as they sound. We've made flying very safe, and one of the things I point out in the book, it's getting hard and harder all the time to tell what's risky and what's not. And we don't have these numbers in our head. One of the most over-feared things, of course, is flying. I mean, you could fly on an airliner for a million years. That thing's not going to crash on you. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, across your lifetime, there's about a 1 in 4 chance that your home's going to catch on fire. So how funny that we're white-knuckling an armrest when we hit a spot of turbulence, but we're not buying smoke detectors and fire extinguishers and stuff like that. We don't have these numbers straight in our head.
Well, if we had the same attitude or the same fear, you might say, of the fire in the house that we have of white knuckling on the plane, we would probably be checking those smoke detector batteries every other day.
Oh, Oh yeah. To demonstrate the equivalent level of paranoia, you would probably spend 24 hours a day staring at the smoke detector. That's how ridiculous that would look. When I see someone, like when your kid comes up to you, don't interrupt me. I'm staring at the smoke detector. Yeah. I mean, that's how irrational we are when we do things like text and drive or cross the street while staring down at our phone. We just don't have these numbers in our head, and it's not our fault. We're smarter than ever. It's just they just keep getting subtle, more subtle. You go back hundreds of years, and dangerous stuff looked dangerous. Like how about a bear? A bear just looks completely dangerous to me. Who's going to get that wrong? I mean, I see a bear, I'm going to step back and stay away from that because it looks like it could do some damage. But I don't naturally think that when I pick up an over-the-counter medication or I pull my phone out or when I have a milestone birthday and I'm getting older. I don't think, gee, I should really make sure all the junk's off of the floors here and I have night lights so I can get up and go to the bathroom. And we just don't. We're not seeing it.
But I think when you have little children, I think you begin, the kind of in-home paranoia that you should probably always have. You become a kind of all-seeing prophet. I better cover up those electrical sockets because she'll figure out a way to stick something in there.
Right. Yeah. And if you look at the numbers, we are 6 times better at keeping our kids safe than we are at keeping ourselves safe. So, I have to stop and think, hey, this kid needs me. More specifically, this kid needs my money, needs my paycheck. So if I check out, who's going to check in here? I need to put that kind of thinking that I do with her into myself. And one thing I talk about, an easy way to do that is get them to help. I have my daughter. She is now trained to yell at me for anything that even looks dangerous. I mean, and she loves doing it. She will sit in the back seat of the car. Any missteps at a stop sign or red light or anything, I've just taken to task over this.
And they're very good at that.
Really, they're an awesomely renewable resource, the nagging power of children, and we should all enlist that. It's free.
Yes, it's free. Well, I've often thought that they should do a public service campaign using children to get adults to wear seatbelts, because you notice how kids I have a daughter who's just barely 3. And she already tells everybody to put on their seatbelts because, she's in her safety seat. So she just automatically, nobody told her to do that. She just thinks that she has it on. Well, you, by God, should have yours on too. So I think it'd make a good public service campaign to have kids telling older people to put on their seatbelts.
I think, and I suspect this, that us old dogs are going to be hard to retrain. That the hope for the future is these kids. And what an appealing thing for them. My kid getting to yell at me. What is more fun than that? This is why they're going to, and with reason, and I can't say anything back to her because she's right and I'm wrong. I mean, how would they not enjoy doing that? So, I think they're the way forward. And just like we saw with recycling, like I used to throw trash on the ground when I was a kid. Everybody did, like we didn't think anything about it. But now I'm subject to public humiliation if I do that. And I also feel that I should recycle too. So, it's this next generation. We got to teach our kids to do this stuff. And someone in the book says that.
Well, your book,
we're the way forward.
Your book opens with a wonderful graph that shows that back in 1900, the average person lived to be, was it 48? That was the average.
Something like that.
And then, and way back in that time, we had a huge number of people, a huge percentage who died from accidents. That included automobiles and everything. And then you point out that this line dropped, and our number of people dying from accidents dropped till about 10, 15 years ago, where it's started to tick up a bit about the time cell phones came along. So is there a correlation between cell phones and people dying by accident?
That's a piece of the story. We're now seeing at least 10% of all traffic injuries and deaths are attributable to distraction and cell phone use. But there's so many other things. Look what else happened. Our longevity kept ticking up. And, we've gotten to this point where, we like to say, 40 is the new 30 and 50 is the new 40, but when you really look at it, 70 ain't the new anything. 70 is the new 70. 75 is a 75. Not being able to remember what I did 5 minutes ago is the new that. And we're denying this. And so now as we cross that threshold, as we push our minds and bodies into new territory, we're starting to see those numbers come up. Fall injuries are just getting horrible the world over among elderly people because we're just not seeing this coming. And there are so many things that account for this. And we also spend our free time differently. When I was a kid, we played badminton. Now people jump between rooftops.
Oh my God!
Jump off of bridges with an elastic cord around their neck. You parkour, right.
I saw a video recently of parkour fails, and oh my God, I can just imagine the doctors at the emergency rooms taking care of these people, who through their own stupidity, broke their legs or whatever. And that's popular there in San Francisco where you are, isn't it? The parkour?
I've not seen any myself, and I hope I don't. I'm going to cringe. I don't know. I'm going to yell out like, "Get down, do something else,"
Well, when you were you're a skateboarder, and I remember when I was in San Francisco a few years ago, I was downtown, and I was shocked to see guys riding skateboards down those streets. I said, "My goodness, they must have some horrific accidents."
Yeah, I don't see the numbers on that, but it is a popular form of transportation. And I wonder, other than the occasional, broken bone, if it's any worse than the other forms of transportation, which are horrible, of course. Bicycling fatalities just shot up something like 10% or more, and it's crazy out there. So
what do we do for bicycling is becoming, at least in urban areas, more and more viable alternative transportation? How do we make it safer, other than wearing helmets, etc.?
I'll tell you, I interviewed someone in England who's a bicycling researcher, and he just says infrastructure is the key. And there have been studies here in the U.S. In cities where we just have more bike lanes and just allow more, provide more infrastructure for the mode of transportation. And the number of people who use it goes up, and the number of people who are hurt or killed goes down. It just works. You just set up a system, bake it into the infrastructure, and it can be done really safely. And then on top of that are the wonderful health benefits of cycling. I mean, you're going to live longer if you exercise like that every day.
Do you mean that you have to get the bicycles away from the cars? You have to separate them entirely?
Yeah, I suspect. Yeah, that's certainly true. The data do show that a dedicated bike lane is the safest thing, but a separated bike
very
lane.
helpful.
But we do well even having, when you share the lane with the bike or the cars, you paint. Like here in San Francisco, we have green stripes, which are kind of nice, and cars at least make some attempt to stay out of the green stripes. But it helps, and more people are doing it. But we just need to continue it and let those numbers fall some more.
I want to read this paragraph that had a particular impact on me from your book. From here, your chapter said "From Here to There." It says city, suburban, and neighborhood streets are even worse places to try to save time by speeding along. There, you quote Pilgrim. Pilgrim says the risk of you hitting someone has exponentially gone up. He points out that 25% of all speeding-related fatalities happen on streets where the speed limit is less than 35 miles per hour. Neighborhood speeding is especially cruel because these are the streets where kids play. About 6% of the pedestrians injured are kids, and about 21% of the pedestrians killed are kids. And that's astonishing.
Yeah. And, we do that. We see these neighborhood streets as an opportunity to speed up and save a little time, and it is the worst idea. And I'd invite everybody to do this. Get a wax pen or something. And if you are going 45 miles an hour and you hit an adult, that adult is probably going to die. If you're going slower than that, they might not die. And let's just suppose they're the one making the mistake. They step out in front of you when they shouldn't. Okay, now think about a kid. That number is much slower. So I invite everybody to put a little grease pencil in there, and I call that speed killer fast. Mm-hmm. When you're doing 45, you're going killer fast. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing more than 25, say 30, you're probably going killer fast for a kid. Why would you want to do that? These kids are nuts. They're not paying any attention. They're going to jump right out there without looking. Mm-hmm. Why would you take that risk? Those numbers are burned into my head now, those speeds.
So you save a minute and you take away 100 years from somebody.
But right. But you don't even save a minute. That's the funny thing. I do this analysis, and other people have done this. That whatever you save at this intersection is just going to deliver you to the next
the next
log
light
jam ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Or somebody's going to be staring down at their phone while the light's green, taking a slobber nap and not even notice it. And there goes 5 seconds gone right there. It never works out. These attempts to hurry never result in any real time savings. That's the other thing. The way to get there earlier is to leave earlier. That's the only way. Once you've left, you can hurry all you want. It's like struggling against ropes that you're tied up with. It's not gonna give you anything. Leave late, gonna be late. It's just, yeah.
Well, do you know how long how much time elapses between the turning of red on one side of the light and the turning of green on the other side? Is there like a second between that?
That's such a great question, because it's starting to increase. This is so funny. This is the result of all our hurrying, trying to squeeze more out of that light to make it more efficient for us anyway. It's because we're seeing so many crashes. What I'm seeing happening in San Francisco, where they lock them up, they leave them red all the way around for a matter of seconds, to just get rid of the bad behavior that they know. Mm-hmm. So literally, if say 5 seconds in a 60-second light cycle, we've just lost, 1/12 of all of our available time. We've just taken that right out of the possible productivity of that road. Mm-hmm. So what have we gotten for our hurrying? More lost time. They're forcing lost time upon us. Or if we all just, chilled out and drove at a predictable, sensible speed, we would go faster. Ironic. The way to slow down is to speed up, and the way to speed up is to slow down. That's it right there.
Well, one of the reasons I bring up that question is because near my house there's a big intersection and a relatively long light. If you hit the red light, it's about 2 minutes of waiting because of all the different cars that must go. And I'm often astonished that when I tell my son, I say, he's a teenager, I say, now watch, when this light turns green on my side, you don't want to just take off like a race car driver, because a car's going to come through even though it turned green. And so it turns green, and then about half a second later, a car goes through from the other side. And I'll say, that light must have been red at least a second for him to be coming through still. And so you get a lot of people running that light red. And as you point out in the car, those are the ones that T-bone the car coming through the intersection and cause some of the greatest injuries.
Right.
Because there's no empathy.
Right. And people just don't stop and think. They feel invulnerable. Mm-hmm. And even if a T-bone does happen, I'm going to be the stem of the T, not the cross on the T. I mean, come on. How do you imagine yourself part of a letter? The happy part of the letter. Where does that come from psychologically? I don't know.
Well, over
yeah,
and over,
and
you point out in the book how there's a true lack of empathy, of seeing things from the other guy's point of view. One of the most
yeah,
astonishing ones that you point out is the airline accident in San Francisco, where people had to get off the burning airplane in 2 minutes, and they're getting their carry-on bags to take off with
oh,
them, endangering other
oh,
people for their souvenirs.
yeah.
It's
That's
crazy.
that's the kind of thing. It just makes me want to stay in bed, and it's just and it. I don't know. You'd have to lay those people on a psychotherapist couch and see what's going on in there. But it's happening, and there's evidence that we're in this me generation.
Hmm.
People do studies of books and that are written in magazine articles and emails, and we use the word I and me more than we use the word us and we
Hmm.
compared to 20 years ago, and we're yeah, it might be deteriorating, and but you look at a task like driving or a situation like driving, we need each other. It's a team effort. You can't be safe on your own. Someone can come along and wreck that for you.
Hmm.
We have to do it together, whether you want to or not. It's so many people say, "Oh, worry about me and let the other guy worry about himself." No, it doesn't work. It won't work. You can't just worry about you. When I'm crossing a street, a crosswalk, I need that driver to see me, and I need that driver to do the right thing. Otherwise, I'm in big trouble.
Do you use your cell phone differently from other people? Like if you're out walking in town, do you keep your cell phone in your pocket?
Yeah, first thing I fixed was the car. I
Hmm.
put that thing away. I don't want to hear it. I want to see it. I don't even have it, even if it's face down. I don't even have it within my eyesight because
Hmm.
there are studies that show even the presence of a phone, even if you're not using it,
Hmm.
is still distracting.
Okay.
So I absolutely cured myself of that. Yeah, I tend to walk on the sidewalk and have a peek at it. I never do it in a crosswalk. I'm getting better all the time. I'll tell you, nobody needed this book more than me. I bought the first copy. I kept the first copy, and I read it.
I love
Uh,
that. That's a great
but
recommendation.
I'm getting better at so many things. I'm actually saying the number of times my 6-year-old daughter yells at me per day is in precipitous decline. I mean, that's how I know I'm doing well.
So she's fixed you. You're much safer now for her and for you.
Yeah. Well, she's enforcer. She's a police force. Yeah.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have many other interviews to get to, so your publisher told me I got to let you go. But thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us.
I've loved the discussion, and thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a great day. Be careful.
You too. Okay, you too. Thank you.
We've been talking with Steve Kastner, author of Careful, a user's guide to our injury-prone minds. It has been much praised in the press, and as you can hear, it's a wonderful book, chock full of beautiful statistics and great arguments that will make you and your children and the people you love safer to live longer, healthier, happier lives. For Good Books Radio, I'm Dr. W.F. Strong. I want to thank audiobooks.com for underwriting this program and making it possible. As always, here's hoping that all your books are good reads. Have a great day.